Hashtag single dad finds crying CEO. She pleads, "Do you want to be my date today?" Have you ever wondered if fate has a way of bringing people together at exactly the right moment? If you've clicked on this video, you're about to witness an extraordinary journey of two broken souls finding each other in the most unexpected circumstances. Before we dive into this emotional roller coaster, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories that remind us of the power of human connection. Now, let's begin a tale that might just restore your faith in second chances. The sharp morning air bit at Marcus Wilson's face as he hurried through the park, already 15 minutes late for work. At 42, with salt and pepper stubble and perpetually tired eyes, Marcus had mastered the art of being just punctual enough not to get fired. Being a single father to his 12-year-old daughter Lily had taught him to prioritize, and sometimes that meant his pristine attendance record took a hit. Today was one of those days. Lily had woken up with anxiety about her science presentation, and no amount of hurrying could make up for the extra 20 minutes he'd spent reassuring her that she would be brilliant. Those 20 minutes were sacred, irreplaceable, unlike the meeting he was now definitely going to miss. Lost in thought about budget spreadsheets and his daughter's newfound interest in astronomy, Marcus almost missed the sound. A muffled sob, coming from behind the large oak tree near the park's east entrance. He would have kept walking, should have kept walking, but something in that sound grabbed him by the heart and refused to let go. There, partially hidden by the massive trunk, sat a woman in what was clearly an expensive business suit, her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders shook with each quiet sob, a cascade of auburn hair hiding her face from the world. A designer briefcase lay forgotten at her feet, papers spilling out onto the damp morning grass. "Hey, are you okay?" Marcus asked, immediately regretting the question. Of course she wasn't okay. The woman's head snapped up, revealing a tear-streaked face that belonged on magazine covers, not crying alone in a park at 8:17 in the morning. Despite the mascara trails and reddened eyes, Marcus was struck by how striking she was, high cheekbones, determined jawline, and eyes the color of stormy seas. "I'm fine," she said automatically, then laughed bitterly. "Actually, that's a lie. I'm about as far from fine as humanly possible." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing her makeup further. Marcus hesitated. He was now officially very late for work. His boss would be furious. He should leave. "Can I help?" he heard himself ask instead, crouching down to help gather the scattered papers. She looked at him then, really looked at him, as if assessing whether he was a threat or a potential ally. Whatever she saw in his face must have convinced her. "I'm supposed to be at the Palmer Foundation charity gala in exactly 2 hours and 43 minutes, she said, her voice steadying. "I'm the keynote speaker. I'm also receiving an award for business leadership. And I just found out that my date, my fiancé of 3 years, has been cheating on me with my executive assistant." Marcus winced. "That's brutal." "That's not even the worst part," she continued, gathering strength as she spoke. "The entire business community will be there. Everyone expects me to show up with Richard. His family's company and mine are announcing a merger next week. If I show up alone today, looking like I've been dumped, the rumors will start flying, the stock will take a hit, and the merger could fall apart." She looked at her watch. "And I have less than 3 hours to find a solution." Marcus handed her the stack of papers he'd collected. Their fingers brushed, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. "Do you want to be my date today?" she blurted out, then immediately covered her mouth, looking mortified. "I'm so sorry. That was completely inappropriate. I don't even know you. I'm just desperate," Marcus offered with a small smile. She laughed despite herself. "Terrified, actually. I'm Olivia Bennett, by the way. CEO of Bennett Innovations." Marcus's eyes widened slightly. Even he, perpetually out of touch with the business world, had heard of Bennett Innovations, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. Marcus Wilson. I fix computers at Dalton Insurance. And occasionally rescue crying CEOs in parks, apparently. The absurdity of the situation seemed to hit them both at the same time, and they shared a laugh that felt strangely familiar for two strangers. Look, I know this is insane, Olivia said, her professional demeanor returning as she stood up, brushing grass from her skirt. But I'm serious. I would pay you, well. It's just for a few hours. You wear a tux, smile for some photos, make small talk about how we met through mutual friends. Then you never have to see me again. Marcus glanced at his watch. His boss was going to fire him anyway at this point. I haven't worn a tux since my wedding 10 years ago, he said. And I'm pretty sure it wouldn't fit anymore. I can have one delivered to you within the hour. Any size, any style. Marcus scratched his head, weighing the absolute craziness of what he was considering. I have a daughter. Lily. She gets out of school at 3:30. The event ends at 3. You'll be back in time, Olivia said, hope creeping into her voice. A long pause stretched between them as Marcus considered what his life had become, how safe and predictable it was. How long it had been since he'd done anything spontaneous. Okay, he said finally. I'll do it. The relief that washed over Olivia's face was immediately replaced by businesslike efficiency. She pulled out her phone, made 3 rapid-fire calls arranging for a tuxedo fitting at Marcus's apartment, a car to pick them up, and apparently some kind of emergency hair appointment for herself. As they exchanged contact information, Marcus wondered what exactly he'd gotten himself into. But there was something about Olivia Bennett, beyond her obvious beauty and the absurdity of their meeting, that made him want to help her. Perhaps it was the vulnerability behind her competent exterior, or maybe it was simply that helping her seemed infinitely more interesting than explaining to his boss why he'd missed another meeting. Whatever it was, Marcus Wilson was about to step far outside his comfort zone, and for the first time in years, he felt strangely alive. The hours that followed were a whirlwind. Marcus called in sick to work, then found himself being measured for a tuxedo in his modest apartment by a tailor who seemed unfazed by the rushed job. By noon, he was staring at himself in the mirror, barely recognizing the man looking back at him. The tuxedo fit perfectly, making his shoulders look broader and somehow erasing the perpetual tiredness from his face. At precisely 12:30, a sleek black car pulled up outside his apartment building. Inside, Olivia looked transformed. Her hair was now elegantly styled, her makeup flawless, and she wore a stunning emerald gown that made her eyes look even more striking. You clean up well, Mr. Wilson, she said with a small smile. You look incredible, he replied honestly. As the car pulled away, Olivia briefed him on what to expect. The Palmer Foundation was one of the most prestigious charitable organizations in the city. The annual gala brought together business leaders, politicians, and celebrities for an afternoon of recognition and fundraising. Just follow my lead, she said. If anyone asks, we've been dating quietly for a few months. We met through my college roommate Sarah, who's a mutual friend. You work in IT security, close enough to the truth, but vague enough that no one will ask too many questions. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You've thought this through. I've built a company from the ground up by anticipating problems before they happen, she replied. This is just another problem to solve. But as they approached the venue, a grand historical hotel with a red carpet leading to its entrance, Marcus could see the tension returning to Olivia's shoulders. Her breathing quickened, and her hand, now resting on his arm, trembled slightly. He'll be there, she said quietly. Richard. Probably with his new flavor of the month. Then let's give him something to regret, Marcus said, surprising himself with his boldness. He placed his hand over hers and gave it a gentle squeeze. Ready? She took a deep breath and nodded. Ready. The moment they stepped onto the red carpet, Olivia transformed. The vulnerable woman from the park disappeared entirely, replaced by a confident, radiant CEO who smiled warmly at the photographers and greeted other attendees by name. Marcus followed her lead, smiling when appropriate and shaking hands with a parade of people whose names he immediately forgot. Inside, the ballroom was a spectacle of wealth and influence. Crystal chandeliers hung from ornate ceilings, tables draped in white linen surrounded a polished dance floor, and a small orchestra played softly in the corner. Marcus had never felt more out of place. Olivia. A silver-haired man approached them, arms wide. The woman of the hour. Harold, Olivia greeted him warmly. I'd like you to meet Marcus Wilson. Marcus, this is Harold Palmer himself. Marcus shook the man's hand, trying not to look as intimidated as he felt. Wonderful to meet you, young man, Harold said. Where's Richard? I thought he'd be glued to your side on your big day. Marcus felt Olivia tense beside him. Richard and I are taking some time apart, she said smoothly. Marcus and I have been seeing each other for a while now. Harold's eyebrows shot up, but he recovered quickly. Well. I look forward to getting to know you better, Marcus. Olivia, they need you backstage in 20 minutes for the awards. As Harold moved on to greet other guests, Olivia guided Marcus through the room, introducing him to what felt like hundreds of people. He did his best to remember the cover story, smiling and nodding at all the right moments, but he couldn't shake the feeling that everyone could see right through their charade. And then, across the room, he saw him, a tall, handsome man with perfectly coiffed hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Richard. And beside him, a young blonde woman who looked nervous and out of her depth. That's them, Olivia whispered, following Marcus's gaze. Richard and Jessica. My former executive assistant. Before Marcus could respond, Richard spotted them and, with Jessica in tow, made his way over. Olivia, Richard said, his voice smooth as silk. You look lovely as always. Richard, Olivia replied coolly. Jessica. An awkward silence fell over the group until Marcus extended his hand to Richard. Marcus Wilson, he said, injecting as much confidence into his voice as he could muster. I've heard so much about you. Richard's handshake was firm to the point of being aggressive. Funny, I haven't heard anything about you. That's because Olivia has more class than to discuss her personal life in the workplace, Marcus replied, surprising himself with his quick thinking. Unlike some people. Richard's face darkened, and beside him, Jessica shifted uncomfortably. The merger, Richard began. Is proceeding as planned, Olivia cut in. This is business, Richard. You of all people should understand that personal feelings don't enter into it. A woman with a clipboard approached them. Ms. Bennett? We need you backstage now. If you'll excuse me, Olivia said, turning to Marcus. Will you be okay? Go shine, he told her with a genuine smile. I'll be right here. As Olivia walked away, Richard leaned in close to Marcus. I don't know who you are or what game you're playing, but Olivia and I have history. This little show you're putting on doesn't fool me. Marcus met his gaze steadily. The only fool here is the man who had Olivia Bennett and threw her away. Now if you'll excuse me, I want to get a good seat to watch her accept her award. He walked away before Richard could respond, heart pounding with adrenaline. He found a seat near the front as the lights dimmed and a spotlight illuminated the podium on stage. Harold Palmer introduced Olivia with glowing praise, detailing her rise from a brilliant engineering student to the CEO of one of the most innovative companies in the country. When she stepped into the spotlight, the audience erupted in applause. Olivia spoke with passion about innovation, responsibility, and the future. But what struck Marcus most was when she veered from what was clearly her prepared remarks. Life often presents us with unexpected challenges, she said, her eyes finding his in the crowd. Sometimes the people we trust most let us down. Sometimes we find strength in strangers. What matters is not how many times we fall, but how we rise again." As she accepted her award, the audience rose in a standing ovation. Marcus found himself clapping until his hands hurt, filled with an inexplicable pride in this woman he'd known for less than a day. The rest of the event passed in a blur. There was lunch, more speeches, and a charity auction where Marcus watched in awe as people casually bid tens of thousands of dollars for weekend getaways and artwork. Throughout it all, Olivia remained by his side, her hand occasionally finding his under the table. Whether it was for show or for genuine comfort, Marcus couldn't tell, but he found himself hoping it was the latter. As promised, at precisely 2:55, Olivia made their excuses and they slipped out to the waiting car. "You were amazing in there," Marcus told her as they pulled away from the curb. "The speech, the way you handled Richard, all of it." Olivia leaned back against the seat, closing her eyes. "I was terrified the whole time. But having you there, it helped. I didn't do anything." "You did," she insisted, opening her eyes to look at him. "You showed up. Sometimes that's all we need, someone to just show up when the world feels like it's falling apart." The car pulled up outside Marcus's apartment building, and for a moment, neither of them moved. "I should get inside," Marcus said finally. "I need to change before picking up Lily." Olivia nodded. "Of course. I can't thank you enough for today." "It was my pleasure," he said, and meant it. "I hope things go well with the merger." "Marcus," Olivia said as he reached for the door handle. Would you and Lily like to have dinner sometime? As a thank you." Marcus hesitated. The idea was tempting, more than tempting, but he wasn't sure if entering Olivia Bennett's world, even briefly, was wise. His life was complicated enough. "I'd like that," he heard himself say. "I think Lily would too." Olivia's smile lit up her entire face. "I'll call you." As Marcus watched the car drive away, still dressed in the tuxedo that had transformed him for a day, he couldn't help but wonder if this strange encounter might be the beginning of something unexpected. 3 days later, Marcus was back at his desk at Dalton Insurance, trying to explain to an increasingly frustrated executive why turning a computer off and on again sometimes actually did solve problems, when his phone buzzed with a text message. "Dinner tonight? 7 p.m. I know a place that makes the best milkshakes in town. Bring Lily. Olivia." Marcus smiled and typed back a simple, "We'll be there." That evening, sitting in a retro diner with his daughter and Olivia, watching as the CEO of Bennett Innovations showed Lily how to dip fries into her milkshake, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the sensation of his carefully constructed world expanding to make room for new possibilities. "So you pretended to be Dad's girlfriend?" Lily asked Olivia, her eyes wide with fascination. "Like in a movie?" "Something like that," Olivia replied with a laugh. "Your dad saved me from a very embarrassing situation." "Dad's good at fixing things," Lily said matter-of-factly. "He fixed my telescope last week when I thought it was totally broken." "Is that so?" Olivia raised an eyebrow at Marcus. "A man of many talents. Jack of all trades, master of none," Marcus said with a self-deprecating shrug. "You know that's not the full saying, right?" Olivia pointed out. "Jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than master of one. The shortened version changes the entire meaning." As they continued talking, the evening stretched pleasantly into night. Lily warmed to Olivia quickly, especially when she discovered that the CEO had studied engineering and could explain exactly how telescopes worked. By the time they were saying goodbye outside the diner, it felt like they'd known each other for years rather than days. "Can Olivia come to my science fair next week, Dad?" Lily asked as they were about to part ways. Marcus looked uncertainly at Olivia, not wanting to put her on the spot. "I would love to," Olivia said, surprising him. "If that's okay with your dad, of course." "Of course it's okay," Marcus replied, trying not to sound too eager. "But are you sure?" I know how busy you must be. I'm the boss, Olivia said with a wink. I make my own schedule. As they said their goodbyes, Olivia leaned in and kissed Marcus lightly on the cheek. Thank you again, she whispered. For everything. Over the following weeks, Olivia became a regular presence in the Wilson household. She attended Lily's science fair as promised, cheering loudly when Lily won second place for her project on the moons of Jupiter. She joined them for movie nights, bringing gourmet popcorn and sitting between them on the worn couch that suddenly didn't seem quite so shabby. For Marcus, it was both wonderful and terrifying. Olivia Bennett lived in a world so different from his own, a world of board meetings and business-class flights, of decisions that affected thousands of employees. Yet when she was with him and Lily, she seemed to shed the weight of that responsibility, becoming simply Olivia, a woman who snorted when she laughed too hard and who could debate the merits of different ice cream flavors with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice. The merger with Richard's family company went through without a hitch, though Olivia mentioned casually that she'd insisted on different representatives for the transition meetings. Richard had apparently been relocated to the London office, a lateral move that everyone pretended wasn't a demotion. But as Marcus's feelings for Olivia deepened, so did his insecurities. He was acutely aware of the differences between them, not just in terms of wealth and status, but in experiences, in opportunities, in the very ways they moved through the world. These doubts came to a head one evening when Olivia invited them to a benefit concert. It was the first time they had gone to a public event together since the fateful gala, and Marcus found himself increasingly tense as the evening progressed, noticing the curious glances and whispered comments as they moved through the crowd. Are you okay? Olivia asked as they found their seats, Lily happily distracted by the program booklet. Fine, Marcus replied automatically. Olivia gave him a look that clearly said she didn't believe him, but she didn't press the issue until they were back at his apartment, Lily already in bed after an evening of music that had left her happily exhausted. Talk to me, Olivia said as they sat on the small balcony, the city lights twinkling below them. Something's been bothering you all night. Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know if I fit into your world, Olivia. Those people tonight, they were all looking at us and wondering what you're doing with someone like me. Someone like you? Olivia repeated, her voice sharp. You mean someone kind, intelligent, and genuine? Someone who loves his daughter more than anything and who didn't hesitate to help a stranger in distress? Is that the kind of person you mean? You know what I mean, Marcus said. I fix computers for a living. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment. I drive a 10-year-old car. And I grew up in a trailer park in West Virginia, Olivia said quietly. Marcus stared at her. What? My father left when I was 4. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep a roof over our heads. I got into college on a scholarship and worked night shifts at a diner to pay for books. She reached out and took his hand. The world I live in now isn't where I came from, Marcus. It's a world I built. And I get to decide who belongs in it. I didn't know, Marcus said, feeling foolish. Because it doesn't define me, Olivia replied. Just like your job doesn't define you. We're more than our circumstances, more than our bank accounts. She squeezed his hand. The question isn't whether you fit into my world. It's whether we can build a world together. The sincerity in her eyes broke something open inside Marcus, a wall he'd carefully constructed after his wife left, a protection against hoping for too much. I'd like that, he said softly. Building a world together. Olivia's smile was radiant as she leaned in to kiss him, and Marcus felt the last of his doubts melt away. The months that followed were filled with adjustments and compromises as their lives intertwined. Olivia learned to scale back her workaholic tendencies, setting aside dedicated time for Marcus and Lily. Marcus found himself taking on more responsibilities at work, encouraged by Olivia's belief in his abilities. There were challenges, of course. The first time they were photographed by paparazzi, Marcus was horrified to find his face splashed across tabloid websites with speculative headlines about Olivia's mystery man. Lily faced questions at school about her father's famous girlfriend. And more than once, Marcus had to field not-so-subtle inquiries from Olivia's business associates about his career goals, as if being content with his current position was somehow inadequate. But through it all, they grew stronger together. Olivia found in Marcus and Lily the family she'd always wanted but never prioritized over her career. Marcus discovered that opening his heart again didn't diminish the life he'd built with Lily, but enhanced it. And Lily, wise beyond her years, simply observed that her dad smiled more now, and wasn't that the most important thing? 1 year after their chance meeting in the park, Marcus found himself standing in that same spot, heart racing as he waited for Olivia to arrive. They'd planned a picnic to commemorate the day, Lily happily joining in on the preparation before being dropped off at a friend's house for a sleepover. When Olivia appeared on the path, casual in jeans and a sweater so unlike the tear-stained executive he'd first encountered, Marcus felt the same pull that had stopped him from walking past that day. "Happy anniversary," she said, kissing him softly. "Happy anniversary," he replied, taking her hand as they walked to the oak tree that had witnessed their first meeting. The picnic was perfect, good food, easy conversation, and the comfortable silence of two people who no longer needed to fill every moment with words. As they were finishing the strawberries and champagne, Marcus reached into his pocket. "I have something for you," he said, suddenly nervous. "You didn't have to get me anything," Olivia protested. "It's not exactly a gift," Marcus said, pulling out a small velvet box. "It's more of a question." Olivia's eyes widened as he opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. "This isn't the life either of us expected," Marcus said, his voice steady despite his pounding heart. "But I can't imagine any life now without you in it. You've shown me that second chances don't have to be scary, that building something new can be even better than what came before." He took a deep breath. "Olivia Bennett, will you marry me?" Tears filled Olivia's eyes, but unlike the first tears he'd seen her shed, these were accompanied by a smile that outshone the diamond he held. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Marcus marveled at how one decision, one moment of stopping instead of walking past, had changed everything. How a chance encounter had led to a future neither of them could have imagined. That evening, as they shared the news with an ecstatic Lily over video call, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From a crying CEO and a late-for-work single dad to a family.